Hello, I'm Tom Johnson of Tommy Motorsport. I'm going to show you how to rebuild a Tryton carburettor. I purposely found a dirty old carburettor for this film, and we're going to strip it, rebuild it and make it good. Plenty of spray to break up all the old dirt. We'll start stripping the carburettor by removing the plastic top on the filter bowl. And one thing I'd like to point out to you at the moment, this one's been already modified because it's one of my carburettors. That's a normal screw, and that's the screw that I put in. We just grind that little tip off the end of the screw so it doesn't bottom into the pump top. Remove the cork gasket and the strainer. The strainer will save, the cork gasket will discard. Always put a new gasket in when replacing the kits. And then the 6 screws in the top, which we've replaced with stainless steel, just simply because they are better and they'll take more pressure. These come in a kit of 6, and we can provide these if you want to convert your carburettor. Now remove the whole pump assembly and have a look and see what the diaphragm's like and the spring pressure. Before you do that, put plenty of lubrication into the needle and seat. It's no good checking the needle and seat dry. You need it to be damp, as it would be functioning in the carburettor when fuel's around it. This one's blowing off at 20, but it's crawling down to, and it went down to nearly 10 there. So we're going to have to investigate this and possibly put a new needle or a new needle and seat in there. Just remove this screw for the fulcrum arm. Take it most of the way out. I always leave it slightly in, and be careful with the spring so the spring doesn't jump out. And we have a look at the needle. I'm going to give it a good lashing of cleaner. Do the same in the seat. Having cleaned out the seat and the needle, we're going to try again and just see if there was any foreign bodies in there which was stopping the carb from functioning properly and allowing a leak to come past. So we're going to put the needle back in the seat, the spring in, and we're going to reassemble it. Don't over tighten the screws because they're very soft and they do break very easy. I always set this arm just slightly above the top of the housing, and you can just feel it with your finger. It's very, very slightly raised. And pressure it again and see if that's cured the problem. No, it hasn't. So we're now going to change the needle and seat. Take out the fulcrum screw. Remove the metering arm and the spring. Take out the needle. And then we're going to remove the seat out of the carburettor. I use a special long reach 8mm socket that has been machined down slightly to get into the housing. And now I'm going to do the same procedure, clean it all out. And fit a new seat into the housing. With a new needle and refit the spring. What we're also going to do is replace the fulcrum screw because it's got plenty of wear on it, and it's a good idea to change these regularly. Put the lever arm back in. And tighten back up again. Don't over tighten these because you soon take the head off them. That now just wants raising slightly until it's just proud, and that's ready to test again. Just lubricate it with LM40 or WD-40, whichever you use, and we're going to put pressure onto the seat again and just see what happens. That's perfect. It's blown off at 21 psi and it's reseated at 18, and that's where I like to see them. Okay. Right, I'm now happy that the bottom part of the carburetor is functioning properly, but what we need to do now is remove these jets from the carburetor body, and we're going to put some cleaning fluid down these channels and blow it out with airline, just to make sure that there's no restriction in the fuel ways. As you can see, there's quite a difference between the two needles. That is your high jet and that is your low jet. Your low jet is nearest to the engine, and if I show you on two new needles here, the high jet has the groove in the end piece there and the low jet doesn't, so you can always distinguish it while it's in the carburetor. The way to assemble it is to put the spring onto the needle. You then put the washer on next, and then the O-ring goes on last, because that's what seals in your carburetor. We're going to replace these needles and put new needles in. We'll start with the high jet. Don't forget, the high jet has got the groove round it, so that's the one that goes in the first housing, and then we're going to replace the low jet, which has got just a plain ring on it, and that's the one that goes in the rear jet. Tighten them up, but only lightly. When you get to the end of the screw, just very, very lightly, like that, and then come out approximately 60 minutes on the high, and 75 minutes on the low. The 60 minutes on the high and 75 on the low are just a base setting. We then transfer this to the dynamometer and get the low jet exactly where it is. These can vary from 60 to 90, 100 minutes. Clean the housings, put them down to dry. And we now get a new kit. First put the bottom gasket on, and I always put plenty of lubrication on them so that they don't leak when you build them up. Next is the control diaphragm, and we have to pick it up and look at it eye level and just make sure that this metal plate hasn't got any bends or twists in it, because that would stop it from functioning properly in the carburetor. Don't be afraid to put plenty of LM40 on. We then put the bottom casting on. And once again, plenty of liquid on it, and put the gasket next. Last but not least is the pump diaphragm, the Fawn pump diaphragm. Just make sure it's nice and clean, no dirt or grit on it, and that goes on last. The pump top then goes on, and you can start to replace all your screws. Go around the housing evenly, going across the housing and not just following it round in one after another. Go straight across the housing. Just check with a screwdriver and make sure that the pressure's right on the screws. That's fine. The strainer goes in next. And as I said to you before, always replace the cork gasket so that you don't have a leak on the top. Place the top plastic cover on, and the shortened screw tweak it with a screwdriver just to make sure everything's right. And now we're going to put a pressure test on the pump top just to make sure that there's no leaks in any of this area. We know that the bottom end is right. We're now going to check the top as well. Now pump it up. That's perfect. 20, 18. Blows off at 20 and resets at 18. That's perfect. There you have it. The carburetor's all rebuilt and ready to go again. You don't need such an elaborate piece of kit. I've got that because I do a lot of carburetors. You could use something a lot more simple, like these probably about £30. That's about £150. So there's no point in spending lots of money if you're not doing lots of carburetors. There's no golden rule on how long you go between servicing intervals. It depends on the fuel and how long the carburetor's been stood full of fuel, but we tend to recommend about every 5-6 meetings. But that's the carburetor now ready to go. It will go on dyno now here, and the low jet will be set where it needs to be set. Once this adjuster is set correctly so that the butterfly is level inside to give optimum performance, this should not be moved. If you take this in and out, you can get the butterfly in the wrong place, and sometimes you see them where they go past center and start to close up again. So just make sure that your butterfly is level, that is tightened up quite tightly, and don't move it, leave it as it is. Right, that's your carburetor serviced and ready for off. I'd like to point out that we do supply new carburetors, calibrated and dyno prepared for ultimate performance. We do supply the cleaning agent and the lubrication, the repair kits, the diaphragm kits, the new needle sets, cork gaskets, the fulcrum screws, pump diaphragms, control diaphragms, the stainless steel pump top screws, and needles and seat kits. I hope this video has been some help to you, and good luck with your racing and great success.